Good evening and a very warm welcome to WION World is One News. I am Raghavendra Rao and we are going straight to the biggest story of this hour. Yesterday, Palestine's envoy to Pakistan was seen sharing the stage with global terrorist Hafiz Saeed. Today, India lodged a protest over the meeting. Palestine acted swiftly, first by issuing an apology which was released by the Indian Ministry of External Affairs. It read, and I quote, "The Palestinian side had conveyed deep regrets over the incident and assured the government of India that they are taking serious cognizance of their ambassador's presence at this event. They have said they will deal with this matter appropriately." It was also conveyed that Palestine highly values its relationship with India and stands with us in the war against terrorism and will not engage with those who commit acts of terror against India, unquote. Less than an hour later, Palestine announced that it was recalling its ambassador to Pakistan, Walid Abu Ali. The decision was confirmed by Palestine's ambassador to India, Adnan Abu Al-Hija, but he added that his colleague in Pakistan wasn't aware of who Hafiz Saeed was.
Know him till he starts speaking. When he starts speaking, he asked, "Who is this person?" They told him this, blah, blah, blah. And our ambassador's speech was after him. He made his speech and left. Now for us, even with that, it's not accepted. And for that, the decision has been taken from my government.
However, WION has accessed proof that runs counter to Mr. Hija's statement. On your screens is a video from December 14th showing the Palestinian ambassador to Pakistan meeting Hafiz Saeed. The caption to the video clearly states that the meeting was between him and other political and religious leaders who were attending a Defayete Pakistan Council conference on Jerusalem. Clearly, the Palestinian ambassador to Pakistan is not new to Mr. Saeed. He has met him before and met him again on Friday. Joining me on the broadcast is my colleague Aisha Sindhu. She joins us from the WION newsroom. Aisha, the matter appears to have been settled for now after India lodged a strong protest with Palestine. Palestine has now decided to recall its ambassador to Pakistan.
Thing to note is that in issuing its clarification about what went on yesterday, the Palestinian ambassador to India said very categorically that his colleague in Pakistan had absolutely no idea who this individual was, that it was only when Hafiz Saeed started speaking that he asked other people who were at this event as to who this individual was, and that is when he was made aware of the fact that this is Hafiz Saeed and who Hafiz Saeed really is. But what's interesting is that our research team has been able to dig out a video from December 14th that has been shared by a Twitter handle called Salar Official, which was very actively tweeting yesterday as well, minute-by-minute updates of that rally in Rawalpindi. Now, this video from December 14th, which is on your screens right now, is in fact proof that Mr. Walid Abu Ali, the Palestinian envoy to Pakistan, actually met with Hafiz Saeed as early as December 14th, that this was not the first time that he was meeting him yesterday. He was at this Defayete Pakistan Council meeting on the Jerusalem decision, showing solidarity with the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause. So this is, of course, going to open up a new can of worms, because the clarification that has come from Palestine's envoy to India has completely run counter to the proof that we've been able to access.
Absolutely, Aisha. Requesting you to stay on with us for a while more. Joining us on the broadcast is WION's senior international correspondent, Ramesh Ramachandran, who tracks the Ministry of External Affairs for us. Ramesh, first the Palestinian side claiming that probably their envoy to Pakistan was not even aware of who Hafiz Saeed was when he shared the stage with him. But now there are reports and there is visual proof as well to say that he has already met Mr. Saeed in the past. What do you make of all this?
Well, clearly pictures don't lie, Raghavan. So there has to be, there's no defense actually. When you look back at the events, the Palestinian envoy cannot possibly defend his actions or his him sharing the stage with Hafiz Saeed, even on the 14th of December, early this month. But that said, Palestine is expected to put out a statement from the foreign ministry in Ramallah soon, which will reaffirm its ties with India, and that they are insisting that this should not be seen as precipitating another crisis of sorts between India and Palestine, and that both sides want to put this behind them going forward, especially in light of Prime Minister Modi's proposed visit to Ramallah in the month of February.
I wanted to touch upon next. Does this entire episode have the potential to jeopardize Prime Minister Modi's visit to Palestine?
Not really. As things stand at the moment, Raghavendra, both New Delhi and sources in Delhi and Ramallah telling WION that Prime Minister Modi's visit is very much on the cards, and that he can be expected to travel to Ramallah sometime in the month of February. This will be teamed up with his already confirmed visit to the UAE for the World Government Summit, which will be held in the UAE in the month of February. And it is expected that Prime Minister Modi will be visiting Ramallah before or after his visit to the UAE.
Right. Requesting you to stay on with us on the broadcast, Ramesh. Also joining me on the broadcast is my colleague Khalid Shah, who's been tracking these developments at India's Ministry of External Affairs through the day. Khalid, what is the sense you are picking up from the MEA now? After the Indian protest, Palestine has apologized. They've also announced that they are recalling their ambassador to Pakistan. Can it be construed as the end of this episode, or is it more that is likely to happen?
Well, it's not clear whether this is the end, because new developments are really coming forward as far as this story is concerned. We have indeed digged out an old video which shows that the Palestinian ambassador was well aware of who Hafiz Saeed was, and he had in fact had a meeting with him before as well. That somewhat changes the narrative that the Palestinian side has really come forward with, and that is very important here, because that also shows that this was indeed a very conscious decision from the Palestinian ambassador. And perhaps the questions will be raised whether he had informed his government back in Ramallah about this meeting. That's something that is very important, and perhaps an answer for which we should seek out here. But also about the meeting in itself, the way it happened yesterday at the rally, we saw that Hafiz Saeed was not just there present, and the ambassador was not just there. He also spoke there talking about Jerusalem, talking about Israel and Palestine, and also saying that West Bank is indeed under threat. And that's also important to mention that Hafiz Saeed, his speech was that all 41 countries of the world need to come together and really fight America and Israel. Did the Hafiz Saeed really include himself as an army and somewhat as a terror outfit which will be coming together with other countries to really support the cause of Palestine? Because the ambassador was present there. His staff perhaps would have very well known that this is, they are perhaps going to an event which is organized by Defy Pakistan, which has clear links with Jamaat-ul-Dawa and Lashkar-e-Toiba. So clearly now again, Palestinians are in a dock, because their narrative doesn't really seem to add up. And we have seen the reactions coming in from Indian side, not just from the government, but also from the common citizens of India, defensive experts and strategic affairs experts, I beg your pardon, who have been saying that it's indeed a very upsetting move. It's very upsetting that the Palestinian ambassador was really sharing stage with someone who is responsible for so many terror attacks in and out of India.
Right. Hold that thought, Khalid, and also requesting Aisha Sindhu and Ramesh Ramachandran to stay with us on the broadcast. Here is what defense expert Jaydev Ranade had to say about the issue.
By sharing a platform with him, they are actually showing that they are supporting terrorist groups and terrorists themselves. So I think it's a very negative step. Secondly, I will not be surprised if there is a reaction from India, a formal reaction from India. I think the people here are quite upset. Virtually everyone that I have been seeing commenting on it is quite upset. And it is something that the Palestinians will have to, I think, not only regret, but have to show that they regret for.
Going back to my colleague Aisha Sindhu, who's joining us from the WION newsroom. Aisha, it appears as if the Palestinian government, they appear to have tied themselves up in knots, first claiming that probably their Pakistan envoy was not even aware of the fact that Hafiz Saeed was there on the stage. And then subsequently, after these pictures have emerged of him having met Mr. Saeed earlier also, it just belies that claim. Clearly, they are on the back foot on this.
Absolutely. And as journalists, Raghvendra, you and I know the importance of doing our research and our homework. And now it seems that Palestine has run afoul on that very basic tenet, not just in terms of the meeting that happened yesterday, because by claiming that Hafiz Saeed was, meeting the Palestinian envoy for the first time, it doesn't take away from the fact that the amount of research that had to be done by Palestine's embassy in Pakistan to determine what sort of event they were sending their representative to. Let's not forget, this isn't a low-level functionary in the embassy of Palestine in Pakistan. This is the envoy himself who's decided to attend an event such as this one. Secondly, it's happening in Rawalpindi. Let's not forget, Rawalpindi is the headquarters of the Pakistani military. Thirdly, you're meeting with the Defayat-e-Pakistan Council, an organization that has clear links with the LET, with the JUD, both of which are proscribed terrorist organizations. Now, in issuing that clarification, Palestine's envoy in India says that his colleague in Pakistan had absolutely no idea about Hafiz Saeed was. Clearly, one more example of how homework hasn't been done, because we've been able, in a matter of 15 to 20 minutes, our research team has been able to dig out this video that clearly shows that this is not, in fact, true, that this meeting also took place on December 14th, where the Palestinian envoy to Pakistan is seen shaking hands with Hafiz Saeed. In fact, the caption to that tweet says that this is a meeting between political religious leaders, including quote-unquote Professor Hafiz Saeed and the Palestinian envoy to Pakistan on the Jerusalem decision taken by the United States.
Right, and also bringing back Ramesh into the conversation. Ramesh, you've been tracking these developments very closely. Now, from a diplomatic point of view, clearly Palestine finds itself on the back foot on this. But the fact that these images go on to show that Pakistan, the Palestinian envoy to Pakistan, is almost a habitual offender when it comes to this. And he has met Hafiz Saeed in the past and now as well. Now, the deniability of that earlier meeting is also not there. So, is it just a case of Palestine trying to calm down India's nerves by apologizing and recalling its envoy to Pakistan? Or is it is it more than meets the eye?
Well, clearly, if you look back at the events, Raghvendra, of the last couple of days, both sides, India and in Palestine alike, have acted swiftly. India by expressing a démarche and clearly expressing displeasure at the turn of events in Rawalpindi, when the ambassador shared a stage with Hafiz Saeed, and Palestine, for its part, reacting swiftly by first recalling its ambassador from Pakistan, and now we are standing by for a formal statement from the Palestinian Foreign Ministry in Ramallah, which can be expected in the next few hours or so, I'm told. But that said, Palestinian sources are telling WION that they want to maintain bilateral relations on an even keel going forward, and that this should not be prejudged as precipitating another crisis of sorts, but that this should be seen as a mere blip in the larger bilateral ties. Remember, India enjoys traditional ties with both Palestine and Israel, and that India has a unique advantage of interacting with all countries in the Middle East, or West Asia as it's called, and will seek to leverage its position in the days and months ahead.
Absolutely, Ramesh. And India clearly had reason to feel anguished over what happened. Now, post this apology and recalling of their ambassador to Pakistan, do you think it would have settled some of that anger and anguish at what had happened? Or can we expect more protests or more complaints from the Indian side?
There are two ways of looking at this, Raghvendra. One, this whole development was meant to assuage domestic concerns. Remember, in the lead up to the vote in the UNGA, many in India had expected and anticipated perhaps India to abstain on the UN vote, voting for the resolution, but that India chose to vote for the resolution did not go down well with many in India. And this would have come a shot in the arm for those critics who were questioning India's decision to vote for the UNGA resolution that condemned Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And therefore, India's reaction would have been to assuage those concerns which were highlighted in the light of the Palestine's envoy sharing the stage with Hafiz Saeed. On the diplomatic front, it has come as an unfortunate development, avoidable situation created by this ambassador who shared the stage with Hafiz Saeed. And India's sources are telling WION that they want to put this behind them, especially in light of Palestine expressing regret and apologizing for this particular incident, and that they want to turn the page, as it were, and pick up the threads of the bilateral ties going forward.
Absolutely. And going back to Aisha, do you think this will be the end of this matter, or do you think this episode, the shadow of this episode could loom large on India-Palestine ties in the days to come?
Well, as far as Raghavendra, the issuance of that apology and thereafter by the statement by the Palestinian ambassador to India goes, it seemed that things were back at an even keel, that, you know, India's concerns had been assuaged to a degree. But with the emergence of this new video that seems to run counter to the statement made by the Palestinian ambassador to India, it goes to show that there are going to be perhaps more backdoor, policy chatter that's going to take place, and try to figure out how best to move on from this situation ahead of Prime Minister Modi's visit to Palestine. Let's also not forget that in many ways India has run counter to the opinions, so to speak, of two of its allies, that is the United States and Israel, towards whom India has made rather aggressive overtures this year itself. The Indian Prime Minister becoming the first sitting Prime Minister to visit Israel in its history earlier this year. Also, Prime Minister Modi meeting with the US President Donald Trump, and by India aligning itself in many ways with Palestine as far as that resolution in the United States, or the United Nations, pardon me, goes. It seemed, as Ramesh was pointing out, that it had sort of drawn its position more clearly. Now, this is only going to come as increased brickbats for Mr. Modi's foreign policy from many of his critics, who said that India perhaps should have at least, at the very least, chosen to abstain at this vote so as to continue its policy of looking at both Israel and Palestine as two separate states, and continuing with its stated policy on the two-state solution as far as Israel and Palestine goes.